All right, this is Lee Forster. I'm one of the authors of Ritmos, and I'm going to give you a quick tutorial now on how to start the program up and basically how it works. Hopefully this will avoid some of the confusion that can happen when you're starting with a new program. All right, I'm running this on a Mac, but PCs work essentially the same. I'm going to assume you've already downloaded the Ritmos successfully, and there was another file you got in terms of how to do that, instructions. So I'm going to open the Ritmos. Here for the first time, you'll see this splash screen. And in just a moment, you're going to have an opportunity to put in your name. Now, you need to be very careful that you spell it correctly because it's pretty much impossible to change this once you've done it. Oops, why don't I type my name correctly? So, my first name, my last name, and enter names. This name's going to appear on all the printouts of the work that you do for your instructor, so you want to get this correct. Enter names, and now we're at the main screen for Ritmos. Ritmos is divided into 10 units or 10 chapters, and it matches with the book that hopefully you've already seen. Unit 1 here in the software is obviously Unit 1 in the book. The first thing you're going to want to look at, though, is the orientation. If you click on here, there's a whole section that describes how Ritmos works, and I strongly encourage you to go through this carefully to get an idea of how the software works. There are various screens here in terms of what to expect from this program. It's very different than a typical textbook. And we can learn the navigation right now. If we look at this bar at the top, this shows you where you are in the program. If we go back here to Ritmos, it brings us to the main screen. Here we click on the orientation. You see we're in the orientation. Then you can click on one of these things, and that will bring us to another set of screens. These are called modules, if it matters to you. What is Ritmos? And now, to the right, you see the letters A that can go all the way through H. Those are the different screens that you can go to in Ritmos. So there's not a forward or backward button, sort of like on some websites. Instead, you navigate directly by clicking on these letters at the top, and that will take you to the screens. It's a little different than probably what you're used to, but the advantage of this is once you get used to the software, it's very fast to get in and out and get to where you need to be in the software. So I recommend you go through those. Of particular interest here, in terms of how it works, the interactions that are in the software. But since you're learning Spanish and there are some characters that don't occur in English, you're going to want to figure out how on your computer you're going to be able to create the Spanish characters. We have for Ritmos and Ritmos only created a system for Windows that you can use to make these special characters. So if you're a Windows user, read this carefully. If you're a Mac user, it's already built right into your Mac, and you can read the instructions here in terms of how to do that. So for me on my Mac, I don't have a Windows machine here, so I can't show that. But basically, if you hit this, you can do the accent on the E, or the accent on the A, etc., and the special characters. This is all here. Another option you have for Windows users is you may want to install either a Spanish keyboard on your computer or an international keyboard. The nice thing about those for you is then you can use those when you write papers in Microsoft Word or some other text processor, because the key combinations that I'm showing you here in the Ritmos for the Windows only work in the Ritmos software. It's something we set up specially for this. There aren't little buttons you can push for these characters, so you'll have to figure out how to type them. And I would encourage you, if you're up for it, to look to see how to install a Spanish keyboard on your computer so you can switch to that keyboard when you're typing Spanish, and that will work in the Ritmos just fine. So I'm going to assume you go through the whole orientation carefully. And these are the units then. So to click on Unit 1, Saludos, we click on it, and each unit is divided into 4 temas. It's just a way that we subdivide these units. And these correspond to temas that are in the workbook as well. If we click on 1.1, this is a main tema screen. And you see a few things here. You see, usually it's between 6 to 8 modules. If you click on each one of these, here's sort of the objectives for here. If you click on this, then we'll get the screen navigation. This module has 5 screens. Now, there are many different kinds of interactions in the software. I won't go over all of them here. Some of them are text input. That is, you can type here. So what do you expect from Spanish? I want some Spanish words, probably. And whatever else. Essentially, we've set it up. You'll need to hear from your instructor for sure, but if the questions are in English or it doesn't say otherwise, you can write in English here. Some of these activities for writing will be in Spanish, and they usually clear you in to please write in Spanish in that case. But that's something that your instructor may have special ideas about as well. So we're navigating to the top. Here's another text box to type in. Sometimes there's some information where you have to click on an arrow to go further. Another text box. And to go back to the screen, I just use this top navigation. So going again, here we are in the Que Escultura. And then to get back to the Tema screen, just click up here at the top. So I won't, again, go through all these. There's often vocabulary work.
¿De dónde eres? ¿Y tú?
Where you can click on words and hear sounds. There's a lot of vocabulary practice that goes with it. Now, how do you turn your work in? We save all the work in the Ritmos automatically. There's no save button you have to hit. Whatever you do is automatically saved. And when you've finished with the whole tema, at the bottom of the tema screen, you'll see a printout. If you click on this, what will happen is a PDF file will come up of all the work that you've done. I'll open it up in preview here. So this is sort of what you'll be seeing now. I haven't finished my work here. I've been a bad boy. I'm sure yours will all be filled in. Anything you type in the text boxes will be saved here. All the time activities, the vocabulary practice, the listening comprehension, all the work will be saved here. So make sure you check this over before you turn it in so that you know you've completed everything. Another way you know you've completed things, if we look at the top there, is if the box at the top is blacked out, that means you're done with it. So you see, it's already recorded that I wrote something in here. It doesn't say how much, but I did write something in there. So at the top, I can tell I've already done that. This one, B, is not blacked out, so I know I haven't finished this. So I would top blah, 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 or something else. And then if I continue here, you'll see that it blacks out. So that's another way you can look when you're in the software itself, have you done something or not? But you can always check the printout to make sure. Now at the unit level, here is unit 1, you have two other options you can click on here. Number 1 is to get you a list of all the cultural topics covered in the software and in the text in the workbook. If we click on that, it brings up a PDF file. You can print this out, which I strongly encourage you to do so, and then use it to check off when you're getting ready for a unit exam or to see how you're doing. Have you learned all the basic content, all the basic things that we've put in here? It's usually divided into two groups. One, I can. These are things you can do in Spanish. And the other one is I can explain. These are cultural differences, cultural facts about keywords or concepts that you can explain in English. Now, if you can do it in Spanish, you're really good. But we try to push beyond just what you can do in Spanish because you can't do very much as a beginner. And learning a lot of culture is very important. So we do that in English until you get to the point when your Spanish is good enough. And then we move progressively more topics into Spanish itself. So remember, you don't have to save your work somewhere. It's automatically saved. And of course, when you're working in anything like this, you need to have your exit strategy. How do you quit Ritmos when you're done? Come back to this main screen and hit the quit button. This is the way we quit from Ritmos. It's a little different. Other software doesn't quite do it this way. That's how we do it. So make sure whenever you're done with your work, if you're working somewhere in Unit 1, maybe 1.2, you've done all this work, you've finished, you've made your printout here, and then you go back to the main screen and hit quit down here. A few more pointers I'll give as you work with Ritmos. The first one is this is real Spanish, so learn to deal with ambiguity. You're not going to understand everything you hear because you're going to be listening to a lot of native speakers. Now, this isn't totally hard. We set up ways with vocabulary help, with sentence help, some stuff printed out on the screen to help you understand it, but you're not going to understand everything all the time, and some of the people you'll find more difficult to understand than others. I would encourage you to be brave, keep pushing yourself, and get used to not understanding because non-native speakers are never 100% sure what's going on in Spanish. The better you get, the more you understand, but we're always having to make interpretations of what's happening. We're always dealing with things we don't know, and this is even more so the case for beginners. What we want you to learn is how to function in an environment where you don't understand everything and function effectively. If we set it up so that you understand everything, so you can complete your quiz understanding every single word, that will be of no value to you when you actually talk to people who speak Spanish, because they talk a lot faster than the people do in the recorded audios, so you understand everything. So you may feel like you're failing sometimes. You may get frustrated. That's hard to understand. Push through it, and I can guarantee you that after going through a semester or year of this course, your understanding of real Spanish that's useful in the real world is going to be outstanding when you take into consideration the little amount of time that you've put into it in just a year of class. One more thing. So learning to deal with ambiguity. And don't be afraid to multitask, when you're doing this. What do I mean? You'll run into cultural topics that you probably haven't heard before. Go ahead and open up Google or some browser and check it out yourself on Wikipedia, or if you find a location that sounds interesting, just go there on Google Earth or figure out something about it, because this all connects to the real world. So don't feel like you have to stay in the Ritmos software when you're working with Ritmos, because the information here you can find in other sources as well, and you can even find sometimes contradictory opinions or different things that expand on it or maybe put it in a different light. So don't be afraid, if you're curious about anything, to stop on the Ritmos and go check out the real world, the internet, and find out more about the topic. And there's plenty of stuff in Wikipedia and other sites, and you can use that and maybe even impress your instructor in class with how much you've learned in addition to what's in the software. So that's the brief introduction in terms of how Ritmos works. I wish you a lot of success with it. And you will have contact information for us from your instructor if you ever have any issues with the software, if you find something that maybe is a mistake, you think, or something isn't working quite right. We're here to support you in that, so feel free to contact us via email, and we'll get right on it. Good luck.